All right, so for number 1, it's asking which number best represents the location at point E on the number line below. And then it gives you these choices. They're in the form of decimals. So what I would think would be the easiest thing would be to fill in the other numbers on your number line. All right, so I can see it split up. So here's my first mark, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the 5th mark is where your new number is. So what am I splitting that up by? 2's, 0.2's. So this next one would be negative 1.2. And then I'd have negative 1.4. From there, you should be able to fill in those numbers and select the correct choice for number 1. So make sure you fill in the rest of your number line and select the correct choice for number 1. Are there any questions about number 1 before we move on? Okay. All right, number 2. Find each quotient, and we want to write the answer in the space in simplest form. Well, guys, to find the quotient, so we're doing this without a calculator. It's been a little bit. What do I need to do first to work this out without a calculator? What should I do first? Connor? For adding and subtracting, we want the same denominator, so we don't have to do that here because we're dividing. Good choice. He's the only one that's answered something. Kayla, what do you think? Okay, so let's make it improper first. That's a good way to start. So 4 times 2 is 8 plus 3, 11. So I get 11 over 4 divided by 8 times 1 is 8 plus 7, 15 over 8. Okay. All right, what am I going to do next?
You're going to multiply over 4.
Nope. We don't need a common denominator. Those bottom numbers do not have to match. That's only on adding and subtracting. That's what you're thinking about. Kinsley? So we're going to keep, change, flip. So we're going to keep this first fraction. It stays 11 over 4. Change it to multiplication, and then flip that second one. So instead of 15 over 8, it's going to be 8 over 15. Okay. Now what? Morgan? See if I can simplify. See if I can divide anything, like maybe 4 and 8. Make those smaller. Okay? So make them smaller, and then you can multiply all the way across on the top and all the way across on the bottom. All right? So I'm going to leave you to work it from there. So simplify, then multiply. And can you leave a big number on top? No. What operation do I do to change it to a mixed number? Does anyone remember? Division. We do division. So see how many times the bottom number will go into the top. That becomes your whole number. And then whatever is left over is your new top fraction number. Okay. Are there any questions on number 2? All right. For number 3, what do I need to do to set up number 3 to work it out? What do I need to do to set up number 3? Macy? Change the letters to the numbers. So what's my new problem going to say, Macy?
5 times 2 times 3 2 times 0.
Perfect. All right, so from here you're going to multiply all of these. So multiply all of them, write your new answer, minus, multiply those. Still write your answer. I know 2 times 0 is 0, but write that down, and then you can choose your answer. So write what your subtraction problem is going to be, and then you can choose your answer. Okay? Multiply those out, write your subtraction problem, and then choose your answer. Make sure you write out where we change them to numbers, okay? Write out where we change them to numbers on your paper. All right, while you're finishing that up, I'm going to pass out our notes paper for today. Start recording. All right, does anyone need more time with the math workshop before we start taking our notes? Did everyone get a copy? Should look like this. Okay, so today will hopefully be, in my opinion, one of the easiest days of the year as far as math goes. We aren't using calculators, so we're going to have to use our brain a little bit, but we're not going to be doing any hard math. The big thing, in fact, the hardest part of today's work is writing out your explanation. And you're going to have to write out a sentence, and it's not really, I'm not even making you write a full sentence. I'm going to keep it as short as possible, okay? So when we're doing ratio and rates, the reason we have to write out a sentence is because a ratio is a comparison. And if I'm comparing two things, you gotta explain what you're doing. So it's a comparison. Did I spell that right? Yes. It's a comparison of two quantities. Using division. The comparison of two quantities using division. And there's a bunch of different ways to write out ratios. I'm kind of give you some examples. All right, when it says I'm comparing two quantities, what are quantities? Any idea what does the word quantity mean? Jamie? An amount. It's a number. All right. So let's say I wanted to compare 4 tennis shoes to 5 cleats. I don't know. That doesn't even make sense. So that's what we're comparing. Okay, so I'm comparing the numbers 4 and the number to the number 5. So sometimes they'll actually write out 4 to 5, and we'll actually write out the word to where we're comparing. All right. You could also see it written as 4 colon 5. I almost said semicolon. That's a colon. So 4 colon 5. Am I still comparing the numbers? Do you see that the order doesn't change? 4 comes first. 4 still has to go first. The way that we'll do it in our class a lot, though, what's the way that we can write division that we learned about this year? Price? As a fraction. So I'm going to write my division as a fraction. If 4 is in front, where do you think 4 needs to go? On the top. And I'm going to put 5 on the bottom. All right. Do these right here where it says 4 to 5 or 4 colon 5 or 4 over 5, does that describe to you what we're comparing? No. So we're going to have to write out our fraction. We're going to use this in class. We're going to do a lot of fractions. We're going to have to write out our fraction, and then we're going to have to actually describe the comparison. So when it says explain, we're just going to write a little bitty, like real short, quick sentence explaining how they're comparing. Okay? All right. A rate is a ratio. That's why they're always going to go together. Whenever you talk about ratios, you also talk about rates, because a rate is just a ratio. Like a square is really a rectangle. Cube is three-dimensional. Square is flat. Okay? So a square is a special rectangle. A rate is a special ratio. All right, what makes this ratio special is that it's comparing measurements. So you're still doing two quantities, but this time my two quantities have to be measurements. So like I might be comparing how many feet you go in a day. Y'all see how feet measures distance and day measures time. So a rate has to be using measurements. Another word for measurements is the word units. We've seen this a lot. Remember, if it doesn't have a measurement, you write the word units, because that's what the same thing. Okay, definitions. We don't want to waste too much time there because the key is the examples. All right, you do have a test on this Friday where you're going to have to be writing out these sentences and comparisons like we do. All right. So it says, write a ratio as a fraction. Write each ratio as a fraction in simplest form. So do you have to simplify? Yeah. So when you ask me, Ms. Lanier, do I have to simplify this? It says so in the directions. And then we're going to explain its meaning. This is, to me, the worst part about these. This is the worst, having to explain everything. All right, so let's start with our pens to pencils. So we need the number of pens. So count it up. How many pens are there? Count carefully. Aubrey? 6. Okay, I'm going to do that as a fraction because it's set as a fraction over how many pencils are there? Raise your hand. Chris? 8. Did y'all get 8? Okay. So I have 6 over 8. Now there's my fraction. Is it in simplest form? No, raise your hand. What do I need to do here? Danny?
Divide by 2.
Divide by 2. So I'm going to write down that I'm dividing by 2 for my notes. On your homework, you do not have to. So 6 divided by 2 gives me 3, and 8 divided by 2 gives me 4. Is this fraction in simplest form?
Yes.
Okay, so there is my ratio. But now we have to explain it. What is 3 talking about? Don't work ahead, Chris. Pause. 3 is talking about the pins. Oh, that was real loud and on the camera too. Lovely. Okay. All right, so we're going to say 3 is talking about the pins. And what's happened is every time there are 3 pins in this group, there are going to be 4 pencils. So I'm going to say 3 pins for every, because these are going to repeat together, for every 4 pencils. And that's my entire explanation. Every time I have 3 pins, what am I also going to have? 4 pencils. If I have 4 pencils, what am I going to have?
3 pins.
3 pins. So these have to go together. We do want to keep it in this order. Since 3 was on top, we're going to talk about those 3 pins first. Okay. All right, so let's look at the next one. How many pennies do we have? Emma? King? 3. All right, and Emmanuel, how many dimes? 9. All right, is this a simplified fraction, Aiden? No, what can I divide them by? 3. Perfect. 3 divided by 3 is? And 9 divided by 3 is? Okay. Does anyone think they could give me an explanation here? Keeping it just as simple as the last one. Delaney?
1 penny for every 3 dimes.
1 penny for every 3 dimes. Every time I see 1 penny, I'm going to see 3 dimes. And in fact, guys, look, if I group that together, like there's a penny, there's 3 dimes. Here's a penny, there's 3 dimes. Here's a penny, and here's 3 dimes. Do y'all see how it groups up?
Oh my God.
Are you okay with that? All right. A theater is showing 8 romantic comedies and 12 action thrillers. Look carefully at the question. It says, what is the ratio of action thrillers to romantic comedies? So which number has to come first here? Macy? 12, because we want action thrillers first. I'm going to put 12 over 8. Is that a good fraction? No, let's divide it by 4. 12 divided by 4 is? 3. 8 divided by 4 is? 2. So 3 over 2. All right, does anyone want to try to explain that for me? Josh?
3 action thrillers for every 2 romantic comedies.
3 action thrillers for every 2 romantic comedies. I'm a sucker for a romantic comedy. My husband loves the action. We don't go to the movies very much because we can't agree.
The last movie I went to see at the movies was Black Panther.
He wanted to see that. I said no. All right. Let's look at number 4. So you'll notice number 4, it says above here. Now it says when the problem talks about a total. So now look at this. This was pens and pencils. They were 2 different things, right? And here we were talking about pennies and dimes. 2 different things. Was I comparing pennies to the entire amount of money, amount of coins? No, I was comparing 2 different things. So this is going to be a little different. It says last month Edward ate 9 apples, 5 bananas, 7 peaches, and 4 peaches and 7 oranges. We want to find the ratio of bananas. So how many bananas are there? 5. To the total number of pieces of fruit. Guys, does it say the total number of fruit except for bananas? No, it says all of the fruit. Are bananas a fruit? So do I need to add them up? Yeah. So we're going to do 9, which is 9, okay? 9 apples plus 5 bananas. How much is that? 14. Plus 4 more peaches. 18 plus 7 gives me 25. So I'm adding up all of the fruit.
Maybe divide them by 5.
And we're going to divide these by 5.
Then you get 1/5.
And we get 1/5. So far, is it really any different from up above? No. Now, the issue comes with the explanation. Because I can't say 1 banana for every 5 pieces of fruit. Because do y'all agree that banana came out of that bowl of fruit? Yeah. So in these 5 pieces of fruit, in these 25 pieces of fruit, let's just start there. In that 25 pieces of fruit, did I add up the bananas? Yeah, so if the bananas is in here, guess what? The bananas is still in here. So what could I word instead, Josh?
You could say there's 1 banana in every 5 pieces of fruit.
Instead of saying in, let's say out of. Like I could take 1 banana out of that fruit. Isn't there going to be? Okay. So 1 banana out of. So what that means, guys, is in these 5 pieces of fruit, only one of those pieces is a banana. All right. So there's 1 banana out of 5 pieces of fruit. So if it's talking about a total, my wording is going to change to out of, because I'm taking that item out of that total. Okay? All right, do we have any questions on those so far? You kind of have examples to look at. All right, so let's look at these next ones. These next ones are the ones that people have the most trouble with, but in my opinion, they're kind of the most fun. All right, because they're the most applicable, I feel like. All right, so we say we're splitting something into 2 groups. That's what's happening here. So if I divide 28 cans of soda into 2 groups, and I want the ratio to be 34. 3, 2, 4. So again, how many cans are we starting with? 28. And I'm wanting to split them up so that I have a ratio of 3, 2, 4. Y'all agree with that? So right now I split up my cans, and I have 3 cans here in this pile. And how many are in this pile? 4. How many total cans is that so far? 7. So have I finished splitting them up? No. So every single time I split these up, I'm going to put 3 more cans on top and 4 more cans on the bottom. Now how many do I have? 14. So do I need to keep adding? Yeah. So I'm going to put 3 more on top and 4 more on the bottom, which gives me 21. And I'm going to put 3 more on top and 4 more on the bottom.
28.
So that gives me 28. Y'all agree? So how many cans did I put in the first group? 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 12 cans in the first group. And how many am I putting in the second group? 16. So that would be my split up. 12 cans and 16 cans. Okay. All right. So, Rubianne, what am I splitting up on number 6? 18. So I'm splitting up 18 cups of flour. How many is going into one pile? 4, because it says 4 to 5, right? So I'm going to put 4 in one pile and 5 in the other. All right, right now, how many is that? 9. Do I still have more flour to split up?
Yeah.
So I'm going to split up another 4 and another 5. All right, how many is that? 18. Do I need to keep adding any more?
No.
So in one pile I have 8. What are we talking about? Cups of flour. And 10 cups of flour. Okay. All right. That is it. Your homework is on the back. All right. You have an example of each. If you finish early and want to check your answers on the back, they're back there. If you have a question about if you're setting up something wrong, set back there. Remember, only one person at a time in each of those sheets.